welcome to Whispers of Ink. I'm Machado de Assis, and now I will read one of my stories.
Let's start with the book Old Song, which is part of my novels collection. Chapter 1. We were talking about old folk songs. Between dinner and tea time, just 4 of us sat together, far from the card games and polka dancing. You have to admit, that was a rare and pleasant thing. Polka and cards are like living creatures that slowly destroy our souls. We really need to protect ourselves with a good dose of old-fashioned music, maybe 2 or 3 verses of Kaya no Biko, or another song from the same style. There were 4 of us, all about the same age. I, along with 2 others, didn't know much about these old songs, just a few memories from childhood or teenage years. But the 4th person was different. He was a great reader of such things, and not only knew many of our country's old songs, but also had knowledge of songs from other places. Honestly, it was like a gift fit for kings. I almost forgot to mention that the dinner had been rich and filling. That detail is important for the story because a man before dinner is not the same man after dinner. You could say that discretion often depends on how well you've eaten. There are men who stay quiet and serious during soup, but by dessert time, they put their hearts on the table and slice it up for everyone to share. The key is that the dinner must be abundant, delicious, and elegant, with both cold and warm wines mixed together, followed by a good cup of coffee. And for those who smoke, a nice cruzado cigar completes the experience. Recognizing this as a universal truth, we can only admire diplomats who, despite living through endless dinners, still manage to keep government secrets to themselves. Clearly they're superior beings. Our host had given us a fine dinner. Afterward, the 4 of us moved to a window that looked out over one side of the farmyard. Even though it was summer, a cool little breeze was blowing, and the air seemed to carry the freshness of recent rain. Inside the front room, people were dancing the polka, while in another room, a group was playing cards. But we, as I said, were talking about folk songs. In going to recite one of the most charming verses I've ever heard, one of us said, he lived on Rua de Carioca, and one morning, from the back of the house, he heard this little song. Poor little guy. How foolish he is to think that I love him just because he sees me walking around crying. God only knows who I'm crying for. The reader of old poetry picked up the verse and began to examine it with a touch of scholarly pride. But another listener, Dr. Verissimo, seemed uneasy. He asked the first man for the number of the house where he had lived. The man laughed and said that such a question could only come from a tyrannical government. House numbers, after all, belong on the houses themselves. How could anyone remember them years later? He could, however, describe where on the street the house stood, near Largo de Carioca, on the left side if you were heading downhill. It was during the years 1864 and 65. That's right, said the other. That's right, what? Didn't you ever see the person who sang it? No. I heard it was a seamstress, but I never asked about it. Later I heard the same voice sing the same little song again. I think she didn't know any others. The repetition made it monotonous. If only they knew that little song was about me, he said, shaking the ash off his cigar. When we asked if he was the one mentioned in the last Linegod, only knows who I'm crying for told us numero. I'm the foolish one from the start of the verse. The difference is I didn't think, as the song says, that she loved me. I knew very well she didn't. Aside from that detail, the song is about me. It's possible it was about someone else, but the time, the place on the street, the fact that she was a seamstress, it all fits. Let's see if it really fits, said the former resident of Rua da Carioca, winking at me. Was her name Luisa? No. Her name was Henriqueta. Was she tall? Yes. Tall. Did you know her? No. But then, was this Henriqueta some kind of hidden princess or something? She was a seamstress, Verissimo replied. At the time, I was still a student. I had arrived from the south just a few months earlier. A short time after I got there, look, I'm going to tell you something very private. My wife knows about the whole situation. I told her everything, except that Henriqueta was the greatest love of my life. But she was. I am telling you, it was a deep and intense passion. This is how it all happened. Chapter 2. It all started like this. I had come from the south and decided to stay at the house of a widow named Beltran. Her husband had died in the war against Rosas. She lived off a small military pension and some sewing work she did to make ends meet. Back when I was in the south in 1850, her family and mine became very close. That's why my mother didn't want me to stay anywhere else when I arrived in Rio. She was afraid of the big city and believed that Donna Cora would take good care of me, almost like a second mother. So she asked the widow to look after me. Donna Cora welcomed me a little shyly at first. I think it was because she had 2 daughters, aged 16 and 18, and she was worried about what people might say if I stayed too close to young women. Maybe it was also because their house was quite poor, and she felt embarrassed. At the time, though, I thought it was only about the house, so I tried to make her feel more comfortable by acting cheerful and satisfied with everything. We agreed on how much money I would get each month for my expenses. She gave me a separate room in the backyard. The house stood in a neighborhood called Mataporcos. Every day I walked from there to the School of Medicine without getting tired, and then came back in the afternoon just as fresh as I had left. The 2 daughters were both pretty, but the older one, Henriqueta, was even more beautiful than her sister. In the beginning, they kept their distance from me. I only acted happy on the first day because I thought it would help, but after that, I went back to being who I really was. After lunch or dinner, I would go to my room with my books and leave the widow and her daughters alone. One day, Donna Cora told me I was like a wild animal hiding in the woods. Look, she said, studying is good, and your mother wants you to do that. But you seem to study too much. Come talk with us sometimes. So I started joining them for conversation now and then. Donna Cora was cheerful, while the girls weren't quite as lively, but they were still friendly and polite. A few neighbors visited every once in a while to spend time with them. These little gatherings happened naturally. Nothing strange or exciting occurred. And like that, 2 months passed quietly. 2 months later, Henriqueta fell ill, and I offered the family a great deal of help. Her mother, Donna Cora, thanked me in every way possible, so much that it almost became tiresome. She truly cared for me, and from that moment on, She treated me like a second mother. As for Henrietta, she was also grateful, but her age made her more reserved, and naturally, she wasn't as open or expressive. I admit that seeing her later, as she recovered and remained very pale, made me feel even more drawn to her. I didn't stop to ask myself whether this growing fondness might already be turning into something deeper. Henrietta had a figure and a face that suited the gentle, fragile look of someone recovering from illness. Her paleness only added to the elegance of her features. Anyone who saw her outside would never guess she was a hard-working woman. Around this time, a man appeared who wanted to marry Henrietta. He worked as a clerk in a government office, was about 28 years old, and known in the neighborhood as quiet and stingy. People said he spent no more than a quarter of his salary, lent another quarter at interest, and saved the rest. Since the girl's mother owned a house, it was considered a good match for Henrietta. But Henrietta refused him. She explained that she didn't feel any connection with the man, and that was the truth. Her mother told her that love could come after marriage, and since the man didn't disgust her, she should consider accepting him. It was useless advice. Henrietta made it clear that she would only marry someone she truly respected and cared for. The disappointed suitor became sad and shared his sorrow with Henrietta's sister, who not only welcomed his sadness, but especially welcomed him. The two got married within 3 months. "So what do you think now?" Henrietta would say, laughing. "Marriage and the shroud come one after the other." As for me, I was actually happy that she had refused the proposal, though I still couldn't tell if what I felt was real love. When school vacation came, I traveled south. The next year I returned to Donna Cora's house. By then, her other daughter was already married, and she lived alone with Henrietta. The absence had dulled in me that poorly expressed feeling from the year before, but seeing her again lit it up once more. Then, I had no doubt I knew exactly how I felt, and let myself go. Henrietta, however, had changed. She used to be cheerful, very cheerful, just like her mother. She lived singing. When she wasn't singing, she filled the house with so much life it seemed like there were always people around. I found her different, not sad, not quiet, but lost in thought from time to time, distant in a way I hadn't seen before. Still, I should correct myself. At the moment I arrived, all I felt was a quick, light impression that something was different. My own feelings clouded my judgment, making it hard for me to compare or analyze what I saw right away. We carried on as we used to. I visited them in the evening to talk, sometimes just the three of us, other times joined by a neighbor we both knew. On the 4th or 5th day, I noticed a new face. He was a man of about 30, good-looking, and owned a pharmacy in Ingenho Velho. His name was Fausto. We were the only two men around, and not only did we not get along, I think we actually disliked each other right from the start. Henrietta didn't seem to treat him any differently. She listened to him with interest, I believe, but she also listened to me without showing any sign of annoyance or discomfort. The way they both acted put my mind at ease during those first days. But by the end of the week I began to notice something else. Their eyes met more often, lingered a little too long, or quickly looked away, all in a way that made me suspicious. It was clear that either they already liked each other, or they were heading that way fast. I was devastated. I called myself every harsh name I could think of: fool, idiot, coward, all of them. I had liked Henrietta since last year, lived close to her, yet I had never said a word. We were like strangers. Then this unknown man shows up. Probably had never even seen her before, and he had the nerve to act so bold. I realized then that taking action was everything, or almost everything. Still, I told myself it might not be too late to fix things. So I decided to try, as people say, to throw mud at the wall and see what stuck. I started to visit often, looked for her, and tried to win her over. Henrietta acted like she did not understand what I was doing, but she never treated me badly. When my efforts became more obvious, she slowly pulled away, little by little, until we only spoke when we had to. One day, I found her alone in the backyard of the house, and asked if she wanted me to leave. "Leave?" she repeated. "Yes, tell me if you want me to go." "But why would I want you to leave?" "You know why," I said, lowering my voice and giving it a special tone. Henrietta tried to walk away, but I took her hand. She looked around quickly, afraid someone from the nearby houses might see us. "Well, what is it? Decide," I said. "Let me go, she answered. She pulled her hand free and went back inside. I stayed there alone. Then I understood that she belonged to someone else, or at least, that she did not belong to me at all. I decided to move out. That night, I told her mother, who stared at me in surprise and asked if someone had hurt me. No one hurt me. But then why? "I need to move out," I said. Donna Cora looked sad and confused. She could not figure out the reason, so she asked me to wait until the end of the month. I agreed. Henrietta was not there at the time, and I left soon after. I did not see either of them for 3 days. On the 4th day, I found Henrietta alone in the living room. She came up to me and asked why I was leaving the house. I stayed quiet. "I know it is because of me," she said. I did not answer. "But what fault do I have?" "Don't say anything else. What fault do you have for not liking me?" "Honestly, no fault at all. But if I like you, I also have no fault. So why punish me by forcing yourself to be around me?" Henrietta stayed quiet for a few minutes, looking down at the floor. I was foolish enough to think that maybe she would say yes to me, just so I would not leave. I thought I had won against the other man, but I was only fooling myself. Henrietta was thinking of the best way to tell me something hard. Finally, she found the right words. She said it simply, without beating around the bush or using stories to hide her meaning. She asked me to stay, not just because she wanted company, but because it would help her mother with the household expenses. At the same time, she promised that she would visit as little as possible. I admit that her words moved me deeply. I did not know what to say. I could not insist on leaving, but neither did I feel right about accepting. Without looking at her directly, I could sense that tears were not far from her eyes. Just then, her mother came in, and it was a relief. Chapter 3. Verissimo stopped telling the story because some young women came in looking for her. They were missing dance partners, and did not want to wait. Just 10 minutes at least. No, not even 10. 5 then. Only 5. The girls left, and he finished his tale. When I got back to my room, I spent about an hour thinking about what I should do. It was hard to stay, and I even found it a bit shameful, but leaving her mother behind, ignoring the daughter's request, felt just as painful. So, I found a middle ground. He would remain a boarder, as I had been, but I would spend most of my time away. That way I could avoid any kind of explosion. Naturally, Donna Cora noticed the change after about 15 days. She thought I might have some complaint, so she started treating me with extra care, until one day she finally asked me directly. I answered with the first thing that came to mind, speaking lightly and cheerfully, but it was a planned kind of cheerfulness. I wanted her to sense that I was hiding something, hoping she would try to find out the truth and maybe speak up for me. But Donna Cora didn't understand a thing. As for Fausto, he kept visiting the house, and his romance with Henriqueta became more obvious. Candinia, Henriqueta's sister, was the one who told me everything, or at least everything she knew, because in my anger at being pushed aside, I asked a lot of questions, both about Henriqueta and the pharmacist. That's how I found out that Henriqueta liked him more and more, and he seemed to like her too, though they didn't talk about it clearly. Candinia either didn't know about my feelings or pretended not to know. It's also possible she had plans to take her sister's place. I can't say for sure, because I wasn't thinking too clearly back then. I knew what mattered most, and that was enough to push everything else out of my mind. What I heard about him was that he was a widower, but he had a lover and 2 children, with Hiron still nursing, the other about 3 years old. I was even told some details about this sudden little family, but I won't repeat them because they aren't important, and also because the young ladies are still waiting in the living room. What matters is that this little family really existed. 2 long months went by. At the end of that time, or maybe a little more, nearly 3 months, Donna Cora came to see me with a bright smile on her face. She had some important news to share, and she wanted me to guess what it was. A wedding, she said. I think my face went pale. Donna Cora looked at me in surprise, and for several seconds there was complete silence between us. Finally, I asked her the names of the bride and groom. With some effort, she told me that her daughter, Candinia, was going to marry a young clerk from a government office. I think I breathed a sigh of relief. But Donna Cora stared at me even more surprised. The kind widow had started to suspect the truth. I never found out if she had asked her daughter directly, but it was likely that she had tried to find out what was going on before doing what she did 3 weeks later. One day she came to see me while I was studying in my room. After asking a few casual questions unrelated at first, she asked me to tell her what was wrong. I answered naturally that nothing was wrong. "Stop pretending," she interrupted. "Tell me what's bothering you." "But what do you think is wrong with me? You are like my son. Your own mother gave me permission to treat you as such. Tell me everything. You are in love with someone, aren't you?" I made a gesture as if I didn't know what she meant. You are, she insisted. "And you're going to tell me what's going on. Maybe everything can be sorted out if someone talks, but if no one says anything, then nothing will change." There may have been some planning behind Donna Cora's words, or maybe not, or, to put it more clearly, she seemed less sure than she sounded. But I believed she was completely sincere, and so I fell into her trap. The hope that things could be fixed if I just told her everything, since it wouldn't be too hard to confess to the mother of the girl I loved, gave me the courage to speak. And within a few minutes, I was telling her all about my feelings. When they had started, how sad and hopeless I had felt. I even told her about the conversation I had had with Henriqueta and how she had asked me to leave. Donna Cora couldn't hold back her tears. She laughed and cried with the same ease, but in that moment, the thought that her daughter had thought of her and asked for a sacrifice on her behalf moved her deeply. Henriqueta was her favorite, her main love. "Don't rush into anything," she said to me at the end. "I don't believe in this marriage with Fausto. I've heard some things. As a good man, very respected, hard-working, and honest. I tell you, I would be honored to have a son-in-law like him, and if it weren't for you, I'd prefer him. But it seems the man has some kind of bond." She stopped talking, waiting for me to confirm what she had heard. But I didn't say anything. I even told her that I didn't think it was wise to ask for more details or to demand answers. I was supposed to leave at the end of the year, and I would spend that time far away. I probably said out other things too, but I don't remember now. Their love continued, I believe even stronger, though strange on his part. He didn't say anything to her, didn't ask for anything, and it seemed he didn't even write to her. He cared for her. He went to see her often, almost every day. One day, Donna Cora clearly stepped in to support me. Her daughter didn't say anything different from what she had told me, nor did she hesitate in a different way. She replied that she didn't belong to herself, and when her mother pressed further, she said that she loved Fausto and would marry him if he asked, and no one else, at least not for now. He didn't ask, and he didn't let her go. Everyone assumed the real reason for his silence and distance was some kind of family arrangement. The school holidays came. I went to Rio Grande and returned the following year. I didn't live with Donna Cora again. She became seriously ill and died. Candida, who was already married, was the one who buried her. Enriqueta went to live with her. The love remained the same. The silence stayed the same. And the reason was probably the same, too. On the eve of her death, Donna Cora asked Enriqueta to marry me. Enriqueta herself told me about the request, adding that she had answered numero. "But what are you waiting for?" I asked her. "In waiting on God." Time went by, and the two of them still loved each other just the same. Candida had a fight with her sister. Her sister became a seamstress at that house on Rua da Carioca, an honest, serious, and hard-working woman. Always loving someone who gave her nothing in return, turning down the love and comfort that I offered her for the sake of a fleeting dream she never even had. Just like in that old folk song. "What folk song?" "Not even half a song," the young women interrupted, bursting into the study. "Let's go dancing."
Thank you for listening so far. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like our channel and click the bell to be notified whenever a new book is read. Have you heard of Machado de Assis? Machado de Assis, born in Rio de Janeiro in 1839, is considered one of the greatest writers in Brazilian literature and a master of psychological realism. He was a novelist, poet, playwright, and short story writer whose works explore the complexities of human behavior with irony, subtlety, and deep introspection. Among his most famous novels are Dom Casmurro, which questions truth and memory, and the posthumous memoirs of Bras Cubas, a satirical narrative told by a deceased man. Machado's literature often reflects the contradictions of Brazilian society, addressing issues like race, class, power, and identity in a sophisticated yet accessible style. Despite being born into poverty and facing racial prejudice, Machado de Assis rose to become the president of the Brazilian Academy of Letters and a symbol of literary excellence. His sharp wit and profound observations about society and the human soul make his works timeless and universally relevant. Today, he is recognized not only as a Brazilian icon, but also as a world-class author whose legacy continues to influence generations of writers and thinkers. Machado de Assis shows us that literature can be both elegant and critical, intimate and universal, humorous and profound. His stories remain as powerful and thought-provoking today as they were more than a century ago. Machado is a treasure of world literature, and through his voice, we discover the infinite layers of the human experience.